The Dershow.
I can tell you what this guy, Mamdani, has called for. And he calls for, he admits, he acknowledges he's a Marxist. He wants to bring about socialism in the United States, and he wants to do it democratically. He's a democratic socialist. He wants you to vote for him as a socialist, and then he's going to have, government-controlled grocery stores. I spent a lot of time in the Soviet Union where there were government-controlled grocery stores. You know what the symbol of the government-controlled grocery store is? Empty shelves, long lines, and nothing of quality. We have learned the lesson of socialism, that socialism fails, it bankrupts countries. Has a single country ever really opted for real socialism? The first thing that countries do when the Soviet Union broke down is to introduce free market economy. And they thrive when they do that. New York will fail. It will become a failed city if this guy is elected, and he will be elected because the demographics are shifting. And he's gotten, so there was a map in the New York Times of who voted for him and who didn't vote for him. It seems that Italian Americans voted against him, Jewish Americans voted against him, Irish Americans voted against him. Largely his voting bloc were minorities, and he didn't get a majority of the vote, and it depends who runs against him. Right now, it's possible that Cuomo may run as an independent, Adams as an independent, Sliwa as a Republican, and that will split the vote, and Mamdani will win a plurality, if not a majority. Now, if all the candidates against him would unite and have just one candidate, probably Mayor Adams, who's has his own real problems, but if he ran 1-to-1 against Mamdani, maybe he could win. I don't know. It would split probably the African American vote, and it would. I think a lot of. Depends on whether Republicans voted for Sliwa. Now, there aren't very many Republicans in New York. When I was a kid in New York, in Brooklyn, there would be the Democrats. They were the vast, vast majority. Then the Liberal Party, then the Labor Party. Then there was a Communist Party. It was outlawed ultimately. And then a few other parties, and then the Republican Party. I don't ever remember meeting a Republican in Brooklyn when I was growing up. It was a one-party. It was a one-party city, not a one-party state, but a one-party city. Obviously, Republicans won statewide. Nelson Rockefeller was one of the most popular governors. He was obviously a moderate centrist Republican. But if things don't change, I think we're going to see New York City have as its mayor the most anti-Semitic mayor in the modern history of the United States. Isn't that ironic? The city has the largest Jewish population of any city in the world, other than perhaps Tel Aviv. It depends on how you count Tel Aviv and the suburbs, and the exurbs, and all that kind of thing. But it's close between Tel Aviv. But certainly, New York has the largest number of Jews anywhere outside of Israel. And here's the most absurd thing. A lot of Jews voted for Mamdani. Look, I have to tell you, there's nothing as stupid as a Jew who votes for his enemy. That happened in Italy. Jews voted for Mussolini. Even a tiny number of Jews voted for Hitler, thinking he wasn't as bad as other people say. Jews do not have either a monopoly on smarts or dumbs. Increasingly, they're getting close to a monopoly on dumbs. These self-hating, radical, anarchistic Jews who are basically communists who call themselves socialists. There's nothing more despicable than a Jew who votes for somebody like Mamdani, but there are plenty of them. We don't know what the demographics are. I'd love to see the statistics. Maybe the Forward or one of the other newspapers in New York will do a breakdown and see. It would not surprise me if 20%, maybe even 25% of young Jews voted for a man who calls for boycotting only Israel, no other country, only Israel and only the Jews of Israel. It wouldn't be surprising if 25% of the Jews voted that way. Again, no monopoly on smarts. Jews have some very smart people, but they have some of the dumbest people on the face of the earth, and they always have. And maybe that's one of the reasons that Jews have been so controversial over time, wherever they have been, because there have always been the self-haters. There have always been the people who have turned against their own people. And there are plenty of those who, for their everlasting shame, voted for an enemy of the Jewish people, voted for an anti-Semite, voted for an anti-Zionist, voted for somebody who singles out only the nation state of the Jewish people, voted for a double standard, voted for people who would defund the police. My God, defund the police? The police are our greatest protection against crime. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I have cross-examined policemen. They're still my friends. I mean, I never pass a policeman on the street. Never. In fact, my family sometimes says, enough is enough. I never pass a policeman on the street without going over to her or him and saying, thank you so much for protecting us. I do the same thing with soldiers. But I make it a point to do it with policemen. Policemen are our guards against anarchy, against violence. And if you're an anarchist, you're going to hate the police. Of course, you're going to hate ICE. You're going to hate the FBI. You're going to hate law enforcement. You're going to hate the Justice Department. And that's what this thug, this next mayor of New York, a thug, what he is basically for. And if you think he's bad now, he's hiding how bad he is. He's pretending. He's reaching out to Jews, saying, the good Jews, come on, good Jews, come in and defend me and support me, and I'll be good to you. But once he gets elected, his real hate will come out. And we will see that he is the most anti-Semitic, the most anti-Israel, the most anti-American mayor in the modern history of the United States. I wish I had more optimism that he could be defeated. He could be defeated by the right candidate, but as usual, the Democrats don't have the right candidate. So I think we have to get used to the possibility that New York City will be governed by the most anti-Semitic mayor in the country and perhaps in the world. What a commentary. And by the way, it's not the only city. Chicago elected a progressive mayor, and it's in the garbage these days. And a lot of Jews helped him get elected. San Francisco elected a communist, an avowed communist, as the attorney general of San Francisco. And he got impeached. I mean, he got removed from office because he was so horrible and terrible. I know him. I've known him since he's this high. His grandfather was a close friend of mine. But big cities are voting for communists, are voting for socialists, are voting for anarchists, are voting for radicals. And most important, from my point of view, they're voting for anti-Semites. And this has to stop. And I have to tell you, though, if you're a Republican, you should be celebrating, because every single Democrat who supports this thug is going to have the opposing candidate running against not only him, but the thug. And his pictures will be together. If I advise any Democrat, do not pose for a picture with Mamdani. If you pose for a picture with him, that's going to be the election campaign against you, and you will lose. Americans do not support Mamdani. Idiotic New Yorkers, maybe, but the vast majority of Americans don't. As you know, I'm sponsored by Goldco, AlanLikesGold.com. So if you're thinking about your portfolio and your retirement, a little gold is probably a good thing. And if you're going to buy gold, I recommend Goldco. They have been very, very solid.